attention, please? I'd like to welcome everybody to the Friday the 13th, April the 13th, 2012 meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners, and I invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'm going to switch the agenda just slightly this morning. We have several people I know that want to talk, and we'll make room at the end of our agenda for anybody who wishes to speak. But first I would like to ask Jan Vitras to come up. And this is about the Madison Bicentennial and a previous commitment that the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners made toward that effort.
Yes, it's hard to believe it's been almost 4 years ago. The time went. At that time, the Jefferson County Commissioners approved a $25,000 donation to Madison's Bicentennial. And throughout all of our publicity, we always credited Jefferson County as one of the key sponsors. But the commissioners at that time wanted to make sure that it went for the legacy gift. And if you remember, our whole plan of the Bicentennial was to have a really great birthday party, but also to bring a lasting gift. We had a committee that was working on that, and we, back in the early part of 2009, just felt it was a little too soon. If you'll remember, Bicentennial Park wasn't finished. We didn't really know what was all going to come of this year-long celebration. We now have some things we're working on. We've taken all of the ideas that people had for the legacy gift, a lot of it around public art, around doing something with parks, and about commemorating our history ongoing. So we now have several things we're working on, and we're applying for grants so that we can leverage the money that we do have left from the party, and that we can move forward. So we're asking the commissioners now to honor the pledge of 4 years ago. We are ready to start spending the money. In fact, I'll be going to a conference today for how to do public art down in Louisville. So if you have questions, I've given you a report. We were very good stewards with the money that we had donated from everyone. We unfortunately went through a fire and a recession and a lot of other things, but we still managed to have money in the bank at the end, and I think we're going to be really excited about the public art.
I'd like to also thank you publicly again for all the help you provided to us with our courthouse rededication ceremony. You really stepped up. I know you were drafted, I know, but you responded to the call, and I know all of us really appreciate the work you did.
We do appreciate it.
Very nice. It's a great building, and we're glad to have it back in operation.
I was just thinking of the bunting that was in here. Long story. Anyway, Commissioners, the Jefferson County Board of Tourism has also endorsed this project, and it does need to move on to the Jefferson County Council for formal appropriation, and the fund will be from the Riverboat Revenue Sharing Historic Preservation Fund. In way of explanation to the audience, that fund is money, not tax dollars, but money that's sent to us in a revenue sharing agreement from Switzerland County in Belterra. And this portion of the fund can only be used for historic preservation projects. This fund will be used for the continuation of the Madison Bicentennial celebration, which we were a partner in, and will be used for statues, bronze sculptures, I guess you call them. It's similar to downtown Louisville, Kentucky. Historical and cultural figures from Jefferson County's past will be honored as a part of a destination tourism overall plan. And we wish you well on that. And does anybody want to make a motion to go ahead and send this to the County Council for formal appropriation?
Well, I'll make that motion. I remember we approved it. We didn't know what the project was at the time.
And we didn't either, and so that's fair.
It was going to come out of historic revenue, so I'll make that motion that we pass it to the council.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Petrikowski and a second by Commissioner Cash. We thank you. This is the second time you've come back for this, at least. I think we've talked about it several times. And is there any discussion from the audience before we move to a vote? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I just have one favor. Right, we're still gathering historic characters. So if you have some dead heroes that were children here in Madison, I suggested Jesse Bright to Judge Todd, and he wasn't terribly excited about that, but he did give me a different name. So we'll be publishing lists of the people that we've already researched and stuff.
I'm sure you're thinking of Lanier, Mr.
Oh,
Lanier.
we've got lots of
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Jan.
much, Jan. Appreciate it. Okay, next on our agenda, we have Randy Sage from American Structure Point, who's filling in for Wes Merkel. And this is an update on the courthouse construction project. Randy, would you come on up, please?
Morning, Randy.
How are you?
Good.
Good. We've got, I know, some retainage that we owe HGC. We've been holding out on that. I believe it's approximately $30,000. And, but we also have some issues left to finish, and we were hoping, Randy, that you and Wes could shed some light.
Well, I'm referring to some notes I got from Wes a couple of days ago, so if you bear with me on that, I'll deal with those one at a time. We have the ongoing issues, first of all, to address include some cleaning on the fan coil units. Wes's inspection recently indicated that he felt that the dust on those units was still construction dust, not normal everyday occurrence sort of stuff. So that still needs to be adequately performed. With respect to HGC is waiting, I think, on a specialty contractor to help resolve an issue with dumbwaiter. Pricing on the dumbwaiter is what they're waiting for. The third issue that I have here is that there is the interior sign package has been delivered, but there's some issues that HGC is working on to look at some quality issues on that. Some misspelled names, unfortunately.
Well, I think basically we think it came out of a Cracker Jack box, don't we, Wanda? I think it
It's
fell.
back on the wall.
It is
They
back
got
on
it
the wall.
fixed 2 days ago.
Okay, they did.
Okay.
It fell apart the first night that it was up. All the names were on the floor, and I think it was pretty bad situation.
The adhesive let go.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It glued them. Just let
Two
go.
misspelled names.
Yeah. So, what do you recommend that we withhold from the retainage of approximately $30,000 based on that part of what you just said?
What I would recommend that we withhold is the amount for the cleaning
Okay.
that need to be done, and whether that be based upon an estimate from someone else or
Or if
perhaps
HGC
HGC has
does
a
it.
value, or they just do it, whichever. That's what I would.
We actually have a quote.
We
for
have
the-
one estimate, and I'll show it to you.
Mhm.
It's about a little over $4,000 for that
Mhm.
estimate, but we just have one.
Yeah, I might check on another estimate perhaps, and then I don't think you need 3, unless they're diametrically
Right.
opposed, so.
Do you think we would be safe by deducting not to exceed $5,000 for that particular item, and then,
Yeah.
depending on what the actual,
I think you should be.
if they do it, we would pay them in full.
Right.
But if another company does it, then we would pay, we've got one quote for $4,200.
I think that's fair.
Okay, what else should be deducted, do you think, from the $30,000 besides the 5?
You might, again, I'm not sure if there's any other, I'm not sure what the status is with this dumbwaiter thing. You might withhold a token amount for that.
That was part of the original bid, wasn't it, for them to have that done?
Yes, it was.
Do you think $5,000 would be, I realize that's a lot, but do you think it's enough? You don't?
For that.
I would say, I'm not sure what the pricing is on that.
It's a
what
very
ballpark
obscure
we're in.
item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe an appropriate response might be to release half the retainage.
Okay.
And then hold the rest
Okay.
until those issues are resolved.
I think that's fair.
I'm good with
I
that.
am too.
Okay.
That's pretty much what what I have with respect to HGCs ever. Now, I understand that there are 3 change orders that are, we've looked at. Essentially, they look fine from a pricing standpoint to us. They look fine from a specification standpoint. I say that guardedly because I am checking still into one issue with respect to the legality's not the right word, but the appropriateness of the lock specifications we have for the types of doors.
Your bathroom locks.
But they are, to be specific, the door locks on women's restrooms, and it says second and third floor, but I believe you have an issue on the first floor as well. In addition, the chain link lockable gates for the mechanic room in the basement will be similar to what you have on the side. Storm windows on the second floor. All of those were not specified in the plans that we put together. So those would be additions to the work that they contracted for.
Well, I'd say we could withhold and have the retainage and pay it.
I think that's a good plan.
And see if we can negotiate with them on that plan. If they're not willing to do that, then I guess we'll proceed with that and take it out of their retainage.
But the change orders are separate item.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
The storm windows, were the storm windows on the first floor supposed to be paid for in the original contract?
Yes. Yep. I just don't think we've given them the okay to go ahead and do that because we were still talking about the second and third floor.
Okay, so that doesn't have anything to do with our retainage?
But I think we need to go ahead and just tell them to go ahead and do the first floor, or just not do anything and maybe give us some money back, and then we'll get it all done when we do it. I don't know.
Do you know what the value of those storm windows were in their itemized bid?
In the original? No, I did not, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I would-
That could be determined, I expect.
Yeah, there's a breakout of that. Check it.
So I think that's what we have to determine on that, is if we want to proceed with just the first floor with them, which the labor and everything should be included. I think we've already paid for that. So, or do we want to, just do it all at one time if we decide to put the
Well,
second.
it'd be good
third
if we
floor
did it all at one time, but with them putting a markup in there for the second, third floor,
Yes.
it's not really
Right.
beneficial to us.
Right.
So, I don't know how we work that out. We would like to do the same company, whoever does it, but
Right.
I guess we really need to sit down and talk with them and see what we can work out.
The one thing that I think we can act on right now is the release of 50% of that retainage, approximately $15,000, HGC. Would one of you like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that we release 50% of the retainage to HGC.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Cash, a second by Commissioner Petrikowski. Any further discussion on that particular item?
I was just gonna say, do we need the documentation?
Well, he's just explained to us about the fan coil units. I would put in the minutes that,
I mean, in minutes, I'm saying if we give if we give back half the retainage, do we need any type of legal document saying what it's covering or just cover
I
the
think
minutes?
the minutes with an explanation that we have a private quote to take care of the fan coil unit cleaning. And the other question is the dumbwaiter, which we don't have a private quote on, but we're just estimating, we're trying to put an estimated value to it. And those are basically the two reasons, right?
That's
Am I missing
I
something?
think we just had a time limit.
Yes, you need
We'd
to
get some
So the
answers.
dumbwaiter and the fan coil units, please note them in the minutes, and we'll send them along with the check.
It's just been dragging out, and we hear about, well, we're gonna get this company to look at it, but they never get anybody.
I suspect that perhaps just make a recommendation that we give 30 days for that to be resolved with respect to the date for installation.
For your information too, they did clean the first floor fan
Understand.
coil units.
And
It was a
those-
mess, but they did clean
And
it.
Wes's evaluation was that those were adequate.
Yes,
Yes.
it's the second and third
Right.
story. So, anyway, I just to make sure you kind of.
And I know the dumbwaiter thing, I know it's a specialty really item, and
Right.
they was really having a hard time getting a hold of the boards to try to repair what was there,
Right.
and they did And my recollection of the last time, they was actually talking with a specialty company, but we haven't heard
we never
anything.
heard of it.
First it was
Back,
fixing the motor, then it was the whole unit was, something's hung up.
Right.
We really never got to the bottom of it, so.
Well, I think it just requires their ability to press this specialty contractor to get
If we could get a time,
Would you
date
let
on
us
it.
know what you
That
can
would be
find
good.
out?
Okay.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to release 50% of the retainage to HGC contractors. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. So Randy, I guess you're gonna check with them, you're gonna inform them, I guess, that we've taken this action.
Yes.
And they should expect a check probably next week, I would say.
I have one other thing, Randy. I know that we still have some issue with some of our walls. Have we had a moisture retested in those to see if we could actually have those repaired?
Not that I'm
Yet
aware
at
of.
this point.
I understood we were trying to go through the heating cooling cycle.
Right.
And see what results from that. I will check with our investigating group and see if
Okay.
we've actually done that. I don't think we have.
I don't think we have either, but we're really at the end of that heating and cooling cycle, and I was hoping that maybe we could have that retested so that we could maybe make some plans to get that repaired.
When Wes was down here the last time, I asked him about that, and he said that he might be able to get somebody with a tester to test that for us, and see where it really is right now, because
Yeah.
we should be drying out quite a bit.
It should, it should have happened during the winter. More so than now.
But we was running dehumidifiers, but you
They
guys,
slow down.
yeah, they hardly have to empty them at all anymore, so we're hoping that, with all those running and the heating and cooling cycle, that maybe we're at a point where maybe we can get those repaired.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll ask him to come down here have somebody run through here with the tester. So.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's all.
Tom has given you a chart there, also Randy, of some things that might be warranty issues, or, I don't know what all you've got on there. other than-
Some are little maintenance things that, we're not gonna hold HGC for, but some are concerns, maybe like the air compressor kicks on quite a bit with the fire suppressant. We've been kind of watching that, but, and they've been down several times talking about it, and they say it's pretty much normal, but we're not sure.
HGC says that, or the
Well, no, the company
Is
said
it
that.
Tremaine or?
manufacturer of the compressor?
The installer said that.
Seems like it's leaking off air
It's
as
just
much
a
as
small
it
little
runs.
compressor, and it's a
So,
big system.
Yeah.
So, and it could be to change the temperatures, doing a lot, but if there's a leak, we want to know about it, sure.
Okay, Randy.
All right, very
Thank
good.
you for coming down and
No
visiting
problem.
and bringing your wife. Make sure you take her out for a nice lunch.
Well, we will. We'll probably. We'll
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy, appreciate it.
All right.
Tina, you've got something quick for us, is that right?
I'll be fast.
Okay.
This is just our monthly report from the assessor's office that we have to provide to the DLGF. This report is actually going to show that all of our, can you take one, just pass it down? That we are officially 100% complete on all of our parcel inspections and data entry. So, I'm very, very pleased with that. Now,
That's
there's
great.
some in-house work that we still have to do with ratio studies and cost tables, which is our next process, but I wanted to give you guys a copy of that. Also, and then just to let you know that I will be, and I've sent it to Will yesterday, putting out a request for bids next week, just for appraisal support services from now through 2014. So that way, because that way I'm prepared when budget time comes around this summer. So I will be here next month.
Well, tell
Okay.
your staff-
Thank you, guys.
Tell your
Very good.
staff all congratulations.
I
for getting
will,
all this
thank you.
done.
They work very hard.
Appreciate it. Okay, Jim Olson, all right, we've got bid opening for liquid asphalt material.
Yes, this is the material that's used for chip seal, the majority of it, and also for our spray patching machines. Shall I go on for a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a letter opener?
Yep.
Okay, oh. How'd they let him in here with that?
John, you need to frisk him.
Oh, while Jim's opening up quotes or bids for us here, I'd like to also welcome Owen County Councilman Anton Neff to the Jefferson County Commissioners meeting. He's in the back row. And
Glad to observe.
he's wise and smart enough to have a wife from Jefferson County, so congratulations to you. And glad to have you. And it's not the first time you've been here, I know, so
Thank you.
thanks.
We have bids from two suppliers, Marathon Petroleum, Lowell and Cincinnati, and then Terry Asphalt Materials from Cincinnati. And what I would propose, they'll have lots of prices on each of their bids. I propose to read one price from each of them. RS2 that we predominantly use.
Okay.
Terry Asphalt Materials, you got a bid behind it?
Okay, thank you.
And Marathon Petroleum, they each have a bid behind it. Marathon Petroleum, the job site delivery for RS2, $1.9450 cents. 1.9450. That's RS2 job site delivery. Terry Asphalt Materials, job site delivery, RS2, $1, it'd be 1.8588 cents per gallon. Job site. We have suppliers, representatives from both suppliers here. I would recommend that you take these bids under advisement. We'll let Will, the county attorney, review them. In the meantime, I will offer them, let them share their prices with each other.
That sounds like a good
Okay,
plan.
yeah, sounds good to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
both
Jim.
for bidding.
Thanks for coming, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I neglected to mention at the first part of the meeting that we have approved the claims and the minutes from our last meeting. The next item that we have on our agenda, and thanks for being patient, is Larry Jones. Larry, you want to come on up? And Larry, would you be so kind as to state your address for the purpose of the minutes?
Okay, my full name is Larry G. Jones, and my address is 256 Meadow Lane, Hanover, Indiana.
Thanks, Larry.
Hi Larry, how are you?
Fine, and yourself?
Good, thank you.
I apologize, I was not aware of the 5-minute limitation here.
That is not, if you're not on the
That
agenda.
doesn't apply, it's only if you're not on the agenda.
Oh, okay, because I've got about 15 plus or minus minutes.
Well, I would like you to be as concise as you could, but the 5-minute rule is for people who speak at the end of our meeting that aren't on the agenda.
And if the 5-minute rule came into play, I was more than willing to abbreviate it to 5 minutes and submit my notes.
Just do your best, is all we ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
My issue comes in dealing with the Board of Health here in Jefferson County. And in late May of 2011, I attempted to secure sanitary waste permits from the Department of Health. I first started through the Indiana State Board of Health, and they referred us back to the county because this apparently is a local issue. But that began in late May of 2011, and our original plan was to hook onto the sewers with the town of Hanover, as because property adjoins the town of Hanover, lays within the 2-mile jurisdiction. And further, and I even went to the point of paying the $1,000 tap fee with the town. But further explanation finds out that the town of Hanover has absolutely no easements for any of their sanitary sewer lines in there. So that became an issue in dealing with Mr. New and Mr. Harmon at the Board of Health, all which were questioned by Mr. New in particular. I submitted under the 1.5 rule to the Board of Health the additional costs, both for hooking onto the sewer under the 1.5 rule. I would have had to have expended costs in excess of $15,000, whereas the sanitary septic system was going to cost me somewhere between $6,200 and $6,400. So the 1.5 rule allows me that. Well, Mr. New and Mr. Harmon both questioned the same, constantly calling the suppliers or the people that I submitted the information to, even to the point of contacting Mr. Pettit with regards to the survey cost, because one of the easements that was additionally looked at was crossing an adjoining property owner's property. He was willing to submit to an easement, but he required a survey of his property. That cost was in excess of $2,500. The cost of the legal expenses to define the easement, as well as have it filed here on his deed at the courthouse here, was going to run another $2,000. So you can see I'm escalating the cost to approximately $14,000+. This was not acceptable to Mr. New. He contacted the property owner, unbeknownst to me. He also contacted Mr. Pettit with regard to the cost of some rule came up of a 300-foot rule, and I didn't understand that, and no clarification was ever given to me with respects to that. So constantly delays, questioning, more delays with respect to the survey, legal expenses, and the installer, which, by the way, when Mr. New showed up at our residence unannounced, he handed his business card with 3 names on it, Mr. Baker, Mr. House, and Jason Collins, deputy, and said, one of the 3 you will use. And I'm saying, I don't know any of these. I had another installer, which is certified in Clark County, but Mr. Harmon made it painfully clear to him on contact, and I'm getting this secondhand, so take that in the context of which it's presented, that he said, you don't live in Jefferson County, you're not going to work in Jefferson County. So with that, I tried to comply with Mr. Harmon and Mr. New's request. I contacted all 3. Mr. Baker never returned any phone calls. Mr. House came graciously, submitted a bid of approximately $7,500. Mr. Collins gave me a bid of $6,200, of which was agreeable, but Mr. House told us specifically that he did not want to become involved in this issue, and didn't explain why, just said he didn't want involved. Okay. Mr. New, in questioning the same with respects to the town of Hanover, specifically told me on numerous occasions that he had contacted Mike Williams at the sanitary board of the town of Hanover with respects to these easements. He did not do so because I verified same with Mr. Williams, and he had never called him. So as you can see, I'm beginning to see a pattern develop of delays, stalls, etc., with respects in dealing with the Board of Health. After we were presented all the information to the Board of Health, we were given a tentative okay subject to a soil scientist report. There was a little bit of a delay in scheduling with Mr. Nichols, which is my understanding is the only soil scientist that Mr. Harmon will accept in the county. I understand he's a busy man. It was summertime at the time, so that came into play. And Mr. Harmon made it painfully clear that all 4 parties had to be present. The soil scientist, someone from the health department, the installer, which, by the way, was to be done in his name, not in the property owner's name, which I still don't understand that, and myself, which we ultimately got that scheduled. The test was performed. The guidelines were laid out. The tentative okay was done with one stipulation, that there was some fill dirt that had to be added to the absorption field. I found out from the State Board of Health, Mike met her later, that that was an error, that should have been done after the absorption field was put in, not before. But Ralph made that painfully clear that that had to be done before he would even entertain thoughts of issuing the permit. And during that period of time when that okay was done, and everything was given okay. Mr. New went on a 2-week vacation, and we had the filter added to the absorption field, and we asked that they come and inspect so that we could proceed on with the application and everything that needed to be done with the property owner. Well, Mr. New was on 2 weeks vacation. Steve Kale from the State Board of Health asked Mr. Armand to come and take photos. That's all required. Ralph said he wasn't going to do it. So we had to wait that 2 weeks to get Mr. New back. Now, I believe it was either Tuesday or Wednesday after he got back, so that was rather timely, but still more delays. Then he asked for, and I had given him copies of the prints of the house, and it wasn't good enough. He needed a hand outline of the house with the dimensions of the bedrooms, etc., to verify for his application. And I immediately prepared that, delivered it to his office, and the next thing was the more delays with respects to the application. The application was actually given to the installer, Mr. Collins. Now, I'm not sure how long he held it, but it was more than a week before he gave it to us so that we could fill it out immediately, get it back to the Board of Health for their consideration. Ultimately, took it back, had to be notarized. I had to take it to my attorney's office same day, got it notarized and back to them. Now all of this is operating without the permit being issued, and the contractor on November 14th asked for and received $3,000 for his agreement to start because he needed to purchase the materials for the job. He told me immediately he was going to Stearns Plumbing in North Vernon, purchase same, and would be delivered. This was on, I believe, a Friday, that they would be delivered the following Monday to the site. 2 weeks later, they still weren't delivered. I contacted Stearns Plumbing myself. They know nothing of this gentleman, so I'm having a little credibility problems with him. Ultimately, when confronted with it, he did deliver those to the site, what he said he purchased, but yet it doesn't say add up the dollars and cents with what he says he has spent. November 10th of 2011, the permit was actually issued and given to Mr. Collins, of which I have a copy. Still no response, nothing was done because he's indicating weather was an issue with respects to the installation of the septic and the absorption field. On November 29th, I asked for a meeting between Steve Kale, who is the area rep for the Indiana State Board of Health. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. Fine gentleman, very cooperative, kind of acting as an intermediary in this situation. He did, on very short notice, get a meeting scheduled at the Board of Health. There were several people present from the Board of Health. Audrey, Mike New, Ralph Armand.
Just to clarify, that's not the Board of Health, that's the Health Department staff,
You're
right?
You're correct.
Just to show you I was paying attention.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, and you are correct. All right. Weather was becoming more and more a factor as we get into the fall rains, etc. here, and the request that I had already gotten tentative approval from Steve Kale that this was acceptable under state guidelines, and the way he understood Jefferson County's guidelines would be acceptable as well, that the tank itself would be installed subject to inspection and approval by the health department here in Jefferson County, and that it would require a pumping and hauling so that they didn't contaminate anything. And I fully understood that that gave us some relief, so to speak. It went on for a few minutes, discussion back and forth as to what took place and who hired the installer. But to make a long story short, roughly halfway through the main meeting, unannounced, without any clarification whatsoever, Mr. Armand gets up and walks out. It went on, and ultimately Mr. Collins, who had another meeting, did show up and basically said it wasn't going to be approved, that he couldn't get Ralph to agree to this, even though he had told Mr. Nettler on numerous occasions subsequently, as well as with the installer himself, that it would go on. He just says, no, we're not going to do this till spring. Okay, time passes, we get up to roughly March 1st, and as we all know, we've had a rather mild winter here.
Very mild.
Thank God for small favors.
Yeah.
Well, I began the process of contacting the contractor, and some 10 to 15 phone calls later, he doesn't return, but ultimately the last discussion that I had with him, he said he would be back after he installed some roof jobs that he had in Henryville. And I said, now wait a minute, you collected money from me in October. You keep telling me Ralph says no, the weather's breaking now, why can't we pick this up in between whatever? And he said, Ralph won't approve it. So I went back to Mike Netler at the State Board of Health, and he had indicated that he had at least 2 conversations with Mr. Armand directly in the fact that they were concerned about compaction of the absorption field, and that Ralph had agreed to allow us on an exception to use the composite asbestos plastic tank as opposed to the precast concrete, which is a considerable weight difference involved. And I said, why? There are 2 alternatives that doesn't involve the absorption field, the tank, whether you use a precast or the composite tank. It just didn't make any sense. And he contacted Mr. Armand after that time and indicated that they would schedule a meeting with Ralph, Mike Dew, Mr. Collins, and myself to inspect same. Now we've got roughly 10 days of uninterrupted, beautiful weather. And unannounced, those 3, never a phone call back to me indicating the same, showed up at the residence. They made their presence, did not make their presence known. They just walked on the site, spent about 20 to 30 minutes inspecting it, never followed up back with a phone call to the outcome of their meeting. And I knew that it was there because my wife was present at the house and they didn't announce themselves. So I contacted Mr. Collins with reference to the outcome of it, knowing that he was present at the time. And his response was, we're just going to, you won't be able to use this. You have to have the precast and the weather and the soil won't allow it. Basically, carte blanche, no, we're going to wait. So we're still continuing, and at the advice of, after the Board of Health meeting here about 10 days or so ago, which was an emergency meeting after the tornado victims were. And I was a little hesitant to bring this issue up that because I knew what the basic premise was with respects to that Board of Health meeting, but it gravitated into a general discussion, of which I'm sure Tom will appreciate that was the text of that meeting. But I, after that meeting, contacted Mr. Pietrkowski and explained my scenario somewhat to him, and very receptive with respects to the issues, and we're now dealing roughly the 1st of April, and indicated that normally a 60 plus or day minus period of time from application to installation and completion is reasonable to expect. As you can see, we're almost 10, 11 months into this issue right now, and I still don't have anything. A few minutes later, Mr. Pietrkowski called me back and indicated, let's dot our I's and cross our T's as we go through, and recommended that I call the Board of Health. So I did call both Dr. Leahy and Dr. Hostlers with respects to this, outlining the issues with them. Dr. Leahy was very receptive, but yet I think he deferred everything to Dr. Hostler. And I think that was a very good idea, because one point of entry, one point of return avoids any miscommunications back along the way. Dr. Hostler told me he would be back with me within 24 to 48 hours. He was right on the money. Monday evening, he called me at home at 8 p.m. indicating that he had been in touch with Ralph. He'd been in touch with Mike Netler at the State Board of Health, and he had been in touch with the contractor, or the installer, however you want to phrase it, that an agreement of sorts had been reached that Mr. Collins would be back to complete what was agreeable weather permitting at this point in time, and that he would be in touch with me within 24 to 36 hours. Now, as we sit here today, I've yet to receive any contact from him whatsoever. In summary, as you can see, the delays have been just almost monumental, with respects to it, and I cannot help but feel that all of this is being orchestrated by the control that Mr. Arman and Mr. New have over these entities, and they do not want to communicate whatsoever with respects to the exact details. They do not want to meet with us with respects to getting this resolved, as does Mr. Collins. I've asked on a couple of occasions for a certificate of insurance from him so that I can be protected with reference to this, and I cannot verify this, but my understanding is he has a certificate of insurance on file with the Board of Health here, but yet that has expired. So may be an issue that may need to be addressed from your perspective as well as from my own before I can have the protection here. The last discussion that I had in summary here, the last comment that Mr. Collins, and I quote, gave to me was, I quote, "We will see that this is never installed." And I'll leave that perspective with that. And my overall comment to this is that I think it's time that the county commissioners, the Board of Health, starting from, needs to specifically address this issue to get, and I'm sure there are other horror stories that are coming out at this time as well, but I respectfully request that if nothing more, ask Mr. New, Mr. Arman, and anybody associated, respectfully set aside their differences, step aside from these issues. Mr. Kale has been gracious enough to say that he will monitor it from the state standpoint, and let's move on to the issues and let the commissioners, the Jefferson County Board of Health, deal with these issues, which I know are mounting day by day with you. So
I'd like to congratulate you for keeping such meticulous notes.
Absolutely.
Your story sounds a bit like the Book of Job, but I think that you've really got it well documented, and I appreciate the time that you took, not only to take a day off to come down to the commissioners meeting and explain, but also just the notes that you took and the dates and so forth. It's very helpful, I think, in documenting the problem.
two things you must understand. My background dictated that I had to. That's where I retired from. That's what I did for 36 years. So it's not uncommon for me to. And the next thing is I must comment both Travelers Insurance and you've had your plate full for a while.
Speaking of the Book of Job.
Yeah.
We certainly have.
Because that's what I did for 36 years.
Yeah.
I was with a different character, but I
Right.
appreciate what you went through.
Questions or comments?
No, Larry, I think you documented it well, and I told you to go through the Board of Health first and see if you can get on their agenda and actually talk to the members,
That meeting is Tuesday.
Yes.
Anybody know what time
I
that
think
is?
they normally meet in the
12:30.
afternoon.
I think it's at 12:30.
12:30. I think there might be some other people who wish to speak on this issue too. And
Right.
I know I have a few comments that I'd like to make at the end, but do you want to?
Thanks, Larry.
No,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
for your
Okay.
patience.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for taking my phone calls.
Thank you. Before we get into this, do any of our department heads have any reports they need to make? Darrell, Dave, John Hendricks is here. I'm sorry, John, I'm looking right. Oh, and John Wallace is here. Excuse me. Come on, John. Yes.
As we well know, IKE's in full swing. Riverside Contracting is a subcontractor to the project going on down there. They've approached me about hiring some of the deputies off-duty, part-time, to come down and assist with the traffic issues. There's been a number of near misses. I appreciate the fact that they've been proactive in that aspect, and it is a public safety issue, so they've asked that we could have some deputies work off-duty. It won't take away from any patrols. They will pay the deputy's salary, and they're also going to compensate the county for any fuel that we use down there at a rate of $45 an hour, so that'll pay for the salary and the fuel. I basically just have a brief written agreement with them that I'd like the commissioners to take a look at, and if you choose to do so, sign off on, please. I have spoke with Heather, the auditor's office, and Mary Jo, my administrative assistant. As far as the pay goes, there shouldn't be an issue with running it through as we do operational performance.
John did speak to me about this, and I had a chance to run it by Will Gearing, who is in Whiting, Indiana today, appearing at the Indiana Historic Preservation Conference. They wanted one of us to come, and Will is graciously filling in for us. It's a presentation about the Jefferson County fire rebuild process, so that's where Will is today. Will thought that this would be fine, John. He did ask that the question, and I think you've addressed it, but that the payments from Riverside would be coming through the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department as opposed to the particular officer or reserve
Yes, ma'am,
that you
that'd
had?
be correct.
Okay, that was his only concern, and I think you've answered that. So I think this sounds like a great idea. Anybody who's been caught in that traffic and on
It's bad at
56,
certain times.
There's been,
yeah.
actually, it'll be for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the
Right.
afternoon. There's been some near misses down there, so I appreciate the fact that you're willing to work with us.
Sure.
It's a good plan, and we need to do what we can to accommodate that big major project. Do you feel like we need to take a motion, or
I would
probably
like-
so?
If you would, please.
Okay. Could I have a motion in favor of the agreement between the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department and Riverside Contracting and Excavating LLC regarding traffic control at the IKE plant for certain times of the day?
I'll make that motion.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it is important to know that they will be paying the Sheriff's Department to do that, and it won't be on tax dollars.
And the fuel as well, yes.
In the fuel. I'm going to sign, John, and if you'd be so kind to make a copy
Yes, ma'am.
for Celeste. And today is it? Friday the 13th. Oh, hope that's not bad on me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, traditionally, this is the part of the meeting where those that aren't on the agenda have an opportunity to address the Board of Commissioners. We do ask that you be brief because just to make sure everybody that wants to has an opportunity to speak. So is there anybody in the audience that wasn't on the agenda that would like to speak to the Commissioners? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ruby Wayner, and my address is 7345 South Taylor Road, Lexington, Indiana. And I'd like to thank the Commissioners for having a special meeting this week. I'm sorry you couldn't be here, Julie, but I want to thank you for the gravel and everything at the park. There hasn't been anything put in the dumpsters for the last 3 days, so.
I think we're getting those out of there.
Yeah, I think Monday, isn't that the date, Daryl?
Yeah,
6:30,
that's what
yeah.
Larry told
Okay.
me that it would be.
Right.
But what I wanted to ask was what your opinion was about the meeting Tuesday night. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, what my opinion
Yes.
was? Okay. I wasn't there, but I am going to offer an opinion. But I want to see if anybody else has anything to say first, and I'll offer it at the end, if that's okay. Also, Daryl and the highway department will take a look when they get those dumpsters out and see what ruts they've caused or anything from the park down at Chelsea.
We also have some wood that we need to remove down there, Daryl. Do you have a time frame for that, or what we're gonna do about that?
Well, just as soon as, everybody quits dumping in there, we'll start,
I-
get it out of there.
For a week or two.
Yeah, that's what she was saying earlier, that's the reason.
We can start any time getting it out.
Okay.
Dave's got to take some pictures of it,
Okay, very good.
and then when he gets, when he's done with it, we can start on it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Also, Ruby, annually, the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners, we're a member of the Southeastern Indiana Solid Waste District, and they offer us a picnic table made of recyclable materials. There's one out at the Hanover Library. I think we have one here, don't we? I don't know. Anyway,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
there's a picnic table that's available through the Southeastern Indiana Solid Waste District. It's made of recyclable materials, and we thought that you might be able to use it at the
Yes,
park
we can. I'd
for the
be glad to
Jubilee and
have
other
it.
things. So we have made that request.
Right.
Commissioner
Thank
you.
Cash
We made
made
the
that
request for it.
request.
Appreciate
Yeah, and so that will be coming sometime, and we'll coordinate with you about where you want it placed.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to address the Board of Commissioners? Yes, sir.
My name is Grover Stacy, 3547 East State Road 256, Southsburg, Indiana. It's odd that Mr. Jones made the statement that Ralph gave him 3 names and said you have to use one of these. Because I just spoke to a lady yesterday that said he gave her 2 names and said you have to use one of these. That should not be going on at all. And I brought him before the commissioners and the Board of Health back in the 90s for doing the same thing. He has also told us for 20 years that we cannot install systems in Jefferson County because the court ordered us not to do that. That is a lie. So he's kept us out of Jefferson County for 20 years. And I just want to know how much longer you guys are going to let this go on.
Is that
Something needs to be done. He needs to be out of there, and so does Mr. New and whoever else is involved in it.
Is that all your comments?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I would like to, I was not in answer to your question, Ruby, I was not present at the Board of Health meeting on Tuesday night. I had to work out of town. But Commissioners Cash and Petrikowski were there, and our county attorney, Will Gearing, I believe, was there also. So I can't speak directly to what happened there or whatever. But I will say this. It's my understanding that a petition with a couple thousand names on it approximately was presented to the members of the Board of Health indicating a lack of trust in the Jefferson County Health Administrator. I think that happened. I didn't see it happen, but that's what I've been told.
That's correct.
I have spoken individually with several members of the Jefferson County Board of Health, and it's apparent to me in my role as a county commissioner out and about in the county that the public confidence in the health administrator has been eroded. I think it's been happening over a period of time, and the tornadoes probably brought more attention to it and kind of focused that attention on it, but I don't think it's isolated to the Chelsea area tornado victims. I think that's a piece of it, but that's not the whole picture. I've expressed my opinion that they need to look hard at this situation. I think it's a personnel situation. I'd like to read an excerpt, and this is about the county commissioner's authorities in the state of Indiana. Exercising appointive powers, including both the selection of members to fill positions on boards, commissions, and committees, and appointments of certain department heads. I think everybody, this has been an education process for everybody, but I think everybody understands that the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners don't appoint, hire, or fire the Jefferson County Health Administrator. We do appoint members of the board, including the Jefferson County Chief Health Officer, which currently that's Dr. John Hostler. And I think that the situation has also been somewhat complicated by the fairly recent death of Dr. Riley, who served as our Chief Health Officer for many years. Dr. Hostler is fairly new to that position, a little over a year, I think, something like that. And so I think that this has been an education process for several of the board members as well as Dr. Hostler. I believe that we have a very good Department of Health. I really do. The board, the Jefferson County Board of Health. I also believe that we have some very good employees at the Jefferson County Health Department. I think we have an issue with the health administrator. And I think that issue is being addressed by the Jefferson County Board of Health. I would like to particularly single out Dr. Hostler as someone who has tried very hard, I think, to catch up with what's going on. I think he's plugged into the public confidence issue. He's gone out, and Commissioner Cash may want to speak to this, but I know that all of us have gone out to Chelsea and met with the tornado victims, and all of us have received numerous emails, calls, personal contact about the problems at the health department. Most of them fairly recent, these comments. But through my years as a commissioner, I've had several complaints. It is a tough job. People don't want to, have to pay thousands of dollars toward a septic tank. I understand that. But I also understand that our health administrator needs to show compassion to people and have a good manner with people, because the public confidence is critical to that role, to any of our roles. I'd like to commend Dr. Hostler for trying so hard, going out and visiting, trying to speak with the State Board of Health for clarification. And I'd like to commend the other Board of Health members for also trying very hard. It's my understanding they had a special meeting Tuesday night, and are having another meeting this coming week. I believe they're trying to address this issue. As I said, I think we have a public confidence issue in the Jefferson County Health Administrator. So when you ask my opinion, that's my opinion. And I think that public trust is critical in the successful functioning of this vital department. It's not within the power of the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners to make a personnel decision in this case. But I think that each of us have expressed our, individually, our opinions, and I think the Board of Health is working on it. I don't think anybody on the Board of Health deserves criticism. I think they're trying very hard, particularly Dr. Hostler, going out and visiting and offering his own help with that. So I want to make that distinction. I'm also somewhat concerned with the morale at the Department of Health. There's a lot of people that work at the Department of Health. We have nurses, homemakers, people that work there that do a really good job. They do vaccinations there. They do a lot of things besides septic tanks. And there's a lot of people there that really do a good job. So I want to make sure that they know that. But again, we're back to the public confidence issue of the health administrator. I've heard from the people of Jefferson County loud and clear, and I think everybody has. So Ruby, in answer to your question,
Thank you.
that's the best I think I can do within the powers that I've got to offer. Okay, thank you.
You covered it pretty well.
I think we covered it very well. I think we just have to let the process, play itself out. I know that Board of Health has a meeting on Tuesday night, and we'll all be interested to see.
It's at noon Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, Tuesday evening, or
Or
afternoon. I think it's
12:30.
12:30.
I think they
I
said.
think the meeting is at 12:30. So, yes, sir.
And I'll say something else. The Board of Health, I took Ralph before the Board of Health when Dr. Riley was in there, and he never tells them the truth. They can't make a decision based on what he tells them because he lies about everything he says. He lied about what he told me. I told him what he said to me, and he said, I did not do that. So, he needs to go.
Well, I'll just say this, that I thought we had a meeting the other night with the Board of Health, and they were very receptive to the commissioners being there and putting our input in with them. We did bring attention to the problems that are being addressed out there, and I think they're very receptive to those suggestions we've made to them and those problems, so we're just going to wait it out now to see what they do on Tuesday.
And all of you are always welcome at the Board of Commissioners meeting to talk about what's on your mind.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not on the agenda, so. Anything else?
I don't have anything.
Motion to adjourn?
Julie,
Yes.
that meeting is at 12 o'clock.
12
o'clock.
o'clock at the Jefferson County Board of Health.
Thank you.
Or the Health Department. Okay.
Julie, we have one thing.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, go right
Steve
ahead, I'm
O'Rear
sorry.
and Celeste have a tax update.
I have some good news. I reported on the additional seeded money that the state of Indiana found at the council meeting Tuesday night. And this thing has had 3 new lives as we've gone along.
It's had some legs to it, hasn't it?
And I won't say these are the final figures, I'll just say these are the current figures.
It was before this meeting started this morning.
Okay.
We have received lump sum payments for the year 2011. Now this is the counties, $116,089.30. We received a lump sum payment of $55,707.99 for January through April of 2012. They changed the formula, and from May through December of 2012, we'll receive, in addition to our regular monthly draw, $111,310.01. So our total that we're going to receive by the end of the year is an additional $283,107.30. At the top of the sheet I gave you, I just showed how the new distribution amount for 2012, the old amount, it was an increase of $167,018, and then I had to subtract the money they'd already given us to show the additional, which I used in that first formula. After we distribute the checks to the city of Madison, the town of Hanover, the town of Brooksburg, and the town of DuPont, which I expect to be next week, our seeded fund balance will be $2,761,881.62. So it's kind of a early Christmas present.
There you go.
But it was our money.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it was our money to start with, though.
That's absolutely right. And I'm glad they found it.
Absolutely. Thanks for that update.
Thank you for the update. We have one other comment.
Julie, my name's Larry Lee. I was just wondering if you made a clarification earlier in the meeting about the money coming from Lawrenceburg was not,
Switzerland County?
yeah, from Jefferson County was not tax money. Could you give it?
Yes, we
Could-
have,
Could you re-clarify that in
Yes.
some terms so that we don't all think that there's a money tree down there?
yes,
that they
there's
have?
not a money tree down there.
Okay.
Although, I don't know, they may think of it as a money tree.
They may.
When Switzerland County got the river, or at that time it was called something else, Pinnacle, but now it's called Belterra. They made revenue sharing agreements, both Switzerland County and the actual company that operates the riverboat, with Jefferson County. They send us, the amount fluctuates and it depends on how many people go in and out at the facility. And they send us, it amounts to, we use the bulk of it for road paving, Larry, but it amounts to, I don't know, $500,000 a year approximately. They split with us, when I say us, Jefferson County, Ripley County, and Crawford County, Indiana. It's a three-way, really a four-way agreement. 80% of the money that we get from Switzerland County Belterra, which is not our tax dollar money, but is coming from admission and whatnot, that formula they have at the riverboat, goes toward paving, usually road projects in Jefferson County. 10% goes toward economic development, special projects or to help pay for services for the economic development program, and 10% goes to specifically historic preservation projects. Other projects that we've funded from that have included the Eleutherian College up in Lancaster, the Canaan Masonic Hall when they redid that. We can't use it for anything but a historic preservation project. So that's what does that help?
Yes, I just didn't want anybody to leave here, because your clarification was that it's not tax money.
It's not our tax money.
In all actuality, it is tax money, and if you had just thrown in, it's not, it doesn't originate in Jefferson County.
Well,
tax.
it's not actually all tax money. Part of it comes from a private entity.
Sure.
So that's not all tax money.
Not all of it.
No, but the Switzerland County part does pass through the Switzerland County Council based on the revenues made at the riverboat. Thank you for making me clarify it. It's a kind of a complicated.
It is.
Complicated.
It is.
And I just like people to be able to
Yeah.
understand, and I appreciate your explanation because you explained a couple of things that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And anybody else that has a special historic preservation project like that can come to the commissioners. We get, it's not a large amount of money, but we do act as a committee of the whole on that, and we evaluate proposals for not-for-profits. We don't give money to like a business or an individual, but we do evaluate special projects. That project today that Jan Vitras came to us about was a part of the Madison Bicentennial Project. So it's really going as a partnership with the city of Madison. But thank you for clarifying. I need to be better about it.
Here's our new signs for our courthouse that you want to mention.
Oh yeah, we have new signs for our courthouse. I don't know if everybody saw them. Steve Henry, right?
Yeah.
Howard.
Excuse me, Howard Henry. But Steve's his brother, isn't
Right.
he? I think they turned out pretty good. So.
They really look good against the wall.
You need the frames to come on.
You think they're okay, Celeste? Okay, good.
They look good.
I'm glad that we could get a local person involved in that. I saw a hand in the back. Yes, ma'am.
As far as budget stuff goes, I know that recently the state had some issues where they had an error that the county was going to receive some more money. How's that going to, how would you decide where to distribute that money?
That's just what Steve just went over, Ginger.
I couldn't hear it very well.
I'm so sorry. We don't have a good room for a large meeting, and it's not very good acoustics. That will go, that's okay. He explained it, I'll give you a copy after the meeting. But it hasn't been decided for any use. It's Jefferson County money. It's money that the state made a mistake on withholding on. As a matter of fact, I think the State Budget Committee is meeting at Ivy Tech right now in Madison to discuss this. And after we're done here, I'm going to go up and listen and see what the explanation is. And
It can't be put in general fund.
it cannot be put in the general fund. It's seeded money. It's our county option income tax money. And the bulk of that money goes to pay for the Jefferson County jail bond issue when we expanded the jail. So we haven't, there's no expenditure decisions that have been made. It's going to go into the seeded fund. And seeded stands for Community Economic Development Income Tax. Just to clarify. Okay, thank you. And if you'd like a copy of it, you're welcome to see it. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion. Second.
All right, we have a motion to second. All in favor, please
Aye.
signify by saying aye. Aye.